In the quiet rural town of Wickham in 1968, a chilling mystery began that would haunt a family for generations. This is the story of Martin Allen, a 4-year-old boy who vanished into thin air, only to be seemingly replaced by another boy claiming his identity. What really happened that day, and who was the boy who came back? Let's travel back to August 20th, 1968. The Allen family, consisting of parents Anthony and Valerie and their 4 children, were enjoying a peaceful life in Wickham. 4-year-old Martin was the youngest, a bright and happy child. That fateful afternoon, Martin and his 5-year-old brother Jonathan were playing in the woods near their home. It was a familiar place, a playground they knew well, but on this day the woods would swallow one of them whole. The boys were chasing butterflies, the laughter echoing through the trees. At some point, Jonathan ran ahead, and when he turned back, Martin was gone. He called out his brother's name, but the only reply was the rustling of leaves. Panicked, Jonathan ran home to tell their parents. The alarm was raised immediately. Neighbors, friends, and local police fanned out, combing every inch of the forest. The search went on for days, then weeks. Hope began to fade. The community was heartbroken, but no trace of little Martin Allen was ever found. The official conclusion was a tragic accident, that he had likely fallen into a nearby river and been swept away. The Allen family was left with an empty space at their dinner table and a wound in their hearts that would never heal. Years turned into decades. The Allens tried to move on, but the ghost of their lost son lingered. Then, in 1985, 17 years after Martin's disappearance, a letter arrived. It was postmarked from a town hundreds of miles away. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the words inside sent a shockwave through the family. The letter was from a young man named Stephen, who claimed he was their long-lost son, Martin. Stephen's letter was filled with details only a family member could know. He mentioned specific childhood memories, the layout of their old house, even the name of their family dog. He explained that he had been taken by a strange couple that day in the woods and raised as their own. He said he had only recently started having fragmented memories of his real family and, after some investigation, had found their address. For the Allen family, this was a miracle. The son they had mourned for nearly 2 decades was alive. Without hesitation, they invited Stephen to their home. When he arrived, the reunion was emotional. Valerie Allen, Martin's mother, was convinced. He had the same hair color, the same smile she remembered. Anthony, his father, was more cautious but wanted to believe. The older siblings, now adults themselves, were overjoyed. Stephen fit into the family like a missing puzzle piece. He shared more stories, more memories that seemed to align perfectly with their past. He talked about a specific scar on his knee from a fall he took as a toddler, a detail the family remembered vividly. It seemed too good to be true, and for a while it was perfect. The Allens had their son back. But as the initial euphoria wore off, small cracks began to appear in Stephen's story. Jonathan, the brother who was with Martin on the day he disappeared, started to feel a growing sense of unease. He remembered Martin as being quiet and shy, whereas Stephen was outgoing and confident. Their physical features, upon closer inspection, didn't quite match the family photos of young Martin. There were subtle differences in the shape of his eyes, the curve of his nose. Jonathan tried to talk to his parents about his doubts, but they were so happy to have their son back that they dismissed his concerns. They didn't want to question the miracle they had been given. The real turning point came a few months later. A local newspaper reporter, intrigued by this incredible story of a family reunited, started doing some digging. The reporter was skeptical from the start. How could a 4-year-old remember such specific details after 17 years of being raised by another family? The reporter began investigating Stephen's life before he contacted the Allens, and what he found was explosive. Stephen wasn't Martin Allen. His real name was Stephen Clark. He had grown up in an orphanage not far from the Allens' town. As a child, he had been friends with another boy who was a distant relative of the Allen family. This boy would often talk about the tragic story of his cousin, Martin, who got lost in the woods. Stephen, a lonely and troubled kid, became obsessed with the story. He absorbed every detail, every piece of information he could gather. The story of the lost boy became his own personal fantasy, a life he wished he had. The reporter discovered that Stephen had a history of deception. He had a pattern of inserting himself into other people's lives, craving the love and belonging he never had. The memories he shared with the Allens weren't his own. They were pieces of a story he had pieced together from second-hand accounts. The scar on his knee, a complete coincidence. The final nail in the coffin was a DNA test. In the 1980s, DNA testing was still a relatively new technology, but it was conclusive. The test proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that Stephen Clark had no biological connection to the Allen family. The revelation was devastating. The Allens had to face the painful truth that they had been deceived. The joy of their reunion turned into a second wave of grief, this time mixed with anger and betrayal. They had opened their hearts and their home to an imposter. For Valerie, who had so desperately wanted to believe, the news was crushing. The family was torn apart once again. But what about Stephen? Why would someone do something so cruel? When confronted, Stephen confessed everything. He broke down and admitted that he had been lonely his whole life. He saw the story of Martin Allen as a way to finally have a family that loved him. He never intended to cause them pain. In his twisted reality, he truly believed he could become Martin. He was a deeply troubled young man, a victim of his own desperate need for connection. He wasn't a malicious monster, but a sad, lonely boy who had grown into a sad, lonely man. There were no criminal charges filed. The Allens simply asked him to leave and never contact them again. The story doesn't end there. The case of the real Martin Allen remained open. The publicity surrounding the imposter brought new attention to the cold case. Police re-interviewed old witnesses and looked at the evidence with fresh eyes. But still, nothing. The Woods kept their secret. The most likely theory remains that he tragically drowned in the river, his body never recovered. But without proof, the mystery endures. The Allen family was left to pick up the pieces of their lives, not once, but twice. Their story is a powerful and heartbreaking example of how grief and hope can make us vulnerable. It's a tale of loss, deception, and the desperate human search for belonging. It reminds us that sometimes the stories we want to be true are the ones that can hurt us the most. The boy who called himself Martin Allen was an imposter, but the pain he left behind was all too real. And the real Martin Allen remains a ghost, a 4-year-old boy forever lost in the woods of Wickham. Thank you for watching. What do you think happened to the real Martin? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories. We'll see you next time.